Hola, bienvenidos todos. Hi and welcome everybody. This is the second of our instructional videos covering the preterite tense in Spanish. This video will focus on the irregulars and the preterite tense, those verbs that don't follow the patterns that I've kindly asked you to memorise. So before we crack on with our irregulars, what can you remember about our regular verb formation in the preterite tense? When do we use the preterite tense? What do the verbs endings look like for AR verbs? And what about the verbs that belong to the ER and the IR group? If you're still a bit rusty on these answers, you might want to go back and have a look at the first of our videos on this one, the preterite tense of regular verbs. So our preterite tense is the equivalent in English of us saying, for example, I played, I did play, I ate, I lived, I went, etc. Let's just remind ourselves briefly of what our verb endings look like for our regular verbs. Our AR verbs: hablé, hablaste, habló, hablamos, hablasteis, hablaron. Our ER verbs: comí, comiste, comió, comimos, comisteis, comieron. And our IR verbs: viví, viviste, vivió, vivimos, vivisteis, vivieron. And you remember from the previous video or in class that we realised our ER and IR verb endings are identical in the preterite tense. Now, the irregulars. As always, there's a bunch of verbs that don't follow our pattern, a bunch of verbs that decide to do entirely their own thing. Now, in the preterite tense, we can group our irregulars into three different styles of irregularities, for want of a better expression. The first of these would be the radicals, the second, the yo spell changers, and of course, the usual suspects. I'm sure you could probably already imagine which ones are going to fall into that category, the ones that always misbehave. So let's take a look at our first group of irregulars, the radicals. Now, these are verbs where both the stem of the verb, in other words, the part of the verb when you remove the AR, ER, or IR from the verb in its infinitive, the stem and the endings change. Now, there's quite a few of these, and I've listed them on the handout for you for this week's class. But the radical verbs include verbs such as estar, meaning to be, tener, meaning to have, and venir, meaning to come. So the stems of these verbs are different from what you would normally expect. If we look at estar, for example, if we remove our AR off, you would expect the stem to be est, E-S-T. But in the preterite tense, the stem for estar looks like this, estuve. He's got his own set of endings. Estuve, estuviste, estuvo. Estuvimos, estuvisteis, estuvieron. I was, you were, he, she, it was, etc. The verb tener, for example, an ER verb, you would expect the stem to look like ten, T-E-N here, but it has its own little stem in the radicals here. It's tuve in Spanish. So I had, you had, he, she, it had, and so on and so forth would sound like tuve, tuviste, tuvo, tuvimos, tuvisteis, tuvieron. Venir, another example here, you would expect the stem to look like ven, V-E-N, but it doesn't. It's been, like this. So I came, you came, he, she, it would be vine, viniste, vino, venimos, vinisteis, vinieron. And we did have a bit of a giggle realizing that he, she, or it came. Vino is also the same in Spanish as the word for wine. Obviously, as I mentioned, there's quite a few more of these, and you might want to take a look at them on your handout and try forming some of them. And on your handouts too, I've given you some practice phrases for you to get your heads around. So the second group of irregular verbs in the preterite tense are what we call yo spell changers. Yo, the Spanish pronoun for I. Now, these are verbs where the stem changes, but only in the first person. The verbs behave, for want of a better expression, in the rest of the formations. The you, he, she, it, we, yous, and they. The only one where there's a change is in the I part. And the idea behind this is actually to kind of almost maintain the sound of the verb in the preterite tense and not make it sound a bit too odd. Now, within these yo spell changers, there's a few patterns as well. These yo spell changers tend to be verbs where the infinitive ends in gar, the gar lot, car, lot, and thar, zar. So let's take a look at a couple of these in action. So one of our verbs that we know already, which end in gar, is the verb jugar, meaning to play. Again, if we follow the usual conjugation pattern, our stem would say jug, J-U-G. So you would expect then I played to look like jugué, but that doesn't quite sound right. What happens here is that we sneak the letter U in before the E with the accent to maintain that nice guttural G sound in the middle of the verb. Instead of jugué, jugaste, jugó, jugamos, etc., we say jugué. That UE appears there, that nice sound in the centre. There's a few more examples of these in your handout. Let's take a look at our car. For example, practicar. Now the stem here would be practique, which is looking great, until we put the E acute ending on the end, because then you would be saying practice, and it's not quite right. So the stem for the verb practicar and other verbs that have the car ending on it is a QUE. That allows us to say practique, then follow the pattern as usual, practicamos, practico, and so on and so forth. The final little group here in the yo spell changers are verbs where we have a ZAR at the very end, like the verb empezar, meaning to start. And again, there's a little tiny spell change in the first person only, and we can see an example of empezar there on the screen, empecé, that Z changing to a C. But the Z is there in the rest of the formation of the verbs. Take a look at your handout for a few more of these in action. And remember, these are only spell changers in the first person. The rest of the verb is conjugated as normal. Thirdly and finally are our usual suspects. And I said to you at the start, I bet you know who a few of these are going to be. It's no surprise that the verb hacer is here. He always misbehaves. Hacer meaning to do or to make. Now, these are completely irregular. They're going to do entirely their own little thing here. So let's take a look at what I did, I made, you did, you made, etc. looks like. So we have hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicisteis, and hicieron. He's almost like a radical, apart from that third person, he, she, it, where that C is changing to Z as well. It's quite an unusual one. Again, try to memorise that lovely pattern. He's a very common verb. It's great for you to try to get that filed away in your head. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they, hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicisteis, and hicieron. Our other two usual suspects are the verbs ser and ir. They never behave, don't they not? Now, there's something very unusual about the verbs ser and ir in the past tense. Let's take a look at what they look like. I was or I went, fui. You were, you went, fuiste. He, she, it was or went, fue. We were, we went, fuimos. Yous were, you went, fuisteis. And they were or they went, fueron. It's just a bit mental, this, really. Ser and ir have exactly the same formations in the preterite tense. It's up to you to discover which one we're using by looking at the remainder or listening to the remainder of a sentence so that it can make sense. Again, really useful to help you memorize, if you can help memorize this ser and ir verb. It's really, really popular, really common verbs. And they sound as follows. Fui, fuiste, fue, 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 fuimos, fuisteis, and fueron. To finish off our session today, you might want to take a look at your handout where we had an example of a young person talking about their first day at work. This little activity is on your handout, and the idea is behind it is for you to try to identify our preterite tense verbs, give them a little circle or a little underline as we go through. There are 13. Ayer fue mi primer día de trabajo como vendedora en una tienda de deportes. Empecé a las 8:30. La tienda abrió a las 9 y terminé a las 6. Tuve que ayudar a los clientes y trabajé en la caja también. A la hora de comer, salí a una cafetería con una colega. Comimos unos bocadillos y yo tomé un chocolate caliente para beber. Me gustó mucho el contacto con el público. Sin embargo, el jefe fue un poco desagradable. No me dijo nada durante todo el día y la verdad es que me dio miedo un poco. I hope you managed to find all your 13 verbos en el pretérito. Why not try translating it now? Adiós y hasta la próxima. Muchas gracias.